So this past July, I went to the beach with my cousins and my parents, and I have 10 cousins, and four of them are under 10 years old. And when I usually go to the beach with my nuclear family, I average about four books, four beach reads a trip. And this year, with the extended family with us, I did no beach reading. Instead of binging fictions, I started my professional career as a wave jumping coach, an ocean doula, perhaps. I helped my little cousin swim in the ocean for the first time this summer. I had coached soccer before. I'd swam in the ocean before, but I have never been quite a chaplain of the waves in the way I was this summer. So the specific skill we were trying to learn in the ocean was wave jumping. And for those who are in landlocked areas, this Olympic act occurs in the moments right before a wave starts to bend its arc. Instead of letting yourself be tumbled in the crest of a wave, you jump towards the wall of water and become suspended in the air in a thrilling seconds until you survive on the other side. So my wave jumping mentee's name is Abby, my younger cousin. She's 8 years old and she's a firecracker. She has an older brother. Two of her older cousins are also boys, so we spent a lot of time on vacation shouting girl power together. And although Abby is a strong, independent woman, she was terrified of the ocean. So on the first day of the trip, she stood by me with the water, and I asked if she wanted to go in the waves, and she said, no way. On the second day, she saw people in the water, and so she asked if I could carry her in. The third day, we held hands as we walked in. The fourth day, she walked in the water by herself. The fifth day, she swam by herself. And in our own little mini creation story, on the sixth day, Abby jumped in the waves with joy on her own. So here was my little secret to coaching Abby and these four humans how not to drown in the tide. It was learning how to trust. You must trust that the ocean will hold you. You must trust that your body knows when to jump. And you must trust enough to let go. Like our Hagar text from last week, the story of Abraham and Isaac from Genesis 22 is difficult and shocking and confusing, but it is not without meaning. This narrative is sometimes called Abraham's great test, where he has to prove to God that he really believes enough to risk everything. But the type of God that I know and love isn't the type of teacher that gives a lot of pop quizzes and tests. Instead, I see this passage as an experiment of trust, a practice of a living faith that believes in life, even when the axe of death is in our own hands. Right at the last minute, before violence comes through Abraham, a ram appears so that Isaac does not have to be killed. And just like God giving Hagar and her child water at the moment when their throats were bone dry, at the exact moment before that sword fell, God provided a ram. And this is one of these deep lessons in Hebrew scriptures that we see again and again, that God provides. In the midst of exile, God provides manna. In the midst of drought, God provides water. In the midst of death, God provides a way to live. But how do we, as people in the 21st century, facing our own types of exile and drought and troubles, trust that God, that same old God, to provide? I think there was something in my wave jumping coaching that could help us figure that out. When we were entering into the waters, I would count down with Abby and the kids. 1, 2, 3, trust. And it helps if you close your eyes tight and take a deep breath while you're counting. So every time a wave started to curl, we would say it together, 1, 2, 3, and then jump when we said trust. I told Abby she needed to trust the tide to carry her over the waves. So as the small waves came in, we would practice 1, 2, 3, trust, and we would make it. 1, 2, 3, trust, we would make it again. And then finally, 1, 2, 3, trust, and we were having fun and we were over the biggest waves. And there are moments of wave jumping in our own lives, and problems and hurdles that are larger than ocean waves, but that skill building moment of trusting our bodies and trusting God still applies. Are there moments, upcoming moments, maybe, when you can count with yourself? Can I take this new path in my life? 1, 2, 3, trust. Can I go back to school? Can I adjust to this new situation? 1, 2, 3, maybe a deep breath. Trust. Our faith is proof that many before us have trusted God, and God has sustained life in the midst of that all. Walter Brueggemann, a great theologian, has a commentary about this Genesis passage. And I think his insight deserves a full quoting because it links this trust of God to the same trust we can find in the resurrection of Jesus. Brueggemann says, resurrection concerns the keeping of a promise when there is no ground for it. Faith is nothing other than trust in the power of resurrection against every deathly circumstance. Abraham knows beyond understanding that God will find a way to bring life even in this scenario of death. And that is the faith of Abraham. This is the faith of the living community. And that is the meaning of the ram at the last moment, Brueggemann says. A substitute is not brought by Abraham, but given by God in God's inscrutable graciousness. Trust in the power of resurrection against every deathly circumstance. Trust in the resurrection against injustice, against pandemic. Trust in the resurrection when facing the biggest unknown of our futures is what we must do. Wendell Berry's famous call to practice resurrection must also include practicing trusting in the resurrection. And you can do that for closing your eyes for a few moments on your morning walk, closing your eyes and continuing to walk as a spiritual practice of being with the unknown. You can do that by jumping in waves in the ocean. Learning to trust God does not mean praying to a man in the sky that will grant our every wish. It also means trusting in the change of the seasons, trusting in the sunrise and the cycles of the moon, trusting that there is a time for everything under the sun. Trusting God means trusting that your community will hold you after it all has gone wrong. And we must trust in that river of life. Trust in the journey as Abraham did. Here's a photo of Abby and I during our beach trip. And the four cousins at the post ice cream parlor trip. And there is so much uncertainty in our days ahead, but I hope that for a moment this morning, we can take a play from the book of Abraham and these children who went into the ocean for the first time. So let's say it together. 1, 2, 3, trust. So may it be. Amen.